Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on any traditional and ancestral lands of our indigenous people where we live, learn, and play. Adoption of the agenda, please. Moved by Trustee Thorne, seconded by Trustee Doman. All those in favor? Thank you. Minutes of the November 8th, 2022 open meeting, moved by Trustee Lise, seconded by Trustee Doman. All those in favor? Yeah. Recognition and delegation. None. Report a closed meeting, Mr. Sandquist.
Yes, thank you. The board met in closed session just prior to open. The agenda was consisted of personnel items. The business was not concluded, and immediately following the open board meeting, the board will return to closed.
Thank you. Old business. Action list.
I'm happy to report on the anti-racism policy. We have worked on a draft policy with our Director of Communications, as well as a small group that began that journey on October the 12th. A date for the second meeting of this, looking at the draft, has been scheduled for tomorrow on December 7th. And this draft will then be brought to the January board meeting. And the DEBC for the board to take a peek at our new draft policy.
Any questions for the superintendent? Hearing none, moving on. Personnel 7.1.1, please.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. In the room today, we have our new transportation manager, Aaron Henry. If Aaron Henry wouldn't mind standing up. Aaron just started his role today, so please don't ask him any pertinent questions because I think he's just getting underway. But he has a long history in the school district. He has held many roles in custodial, transportation, and grounds prior to working with the union. He brings an in-depth knowledge of the district and its operations, as well as relationships with management across the district from his time in the union, where he was a strong advocate for employees. So we welcome Aaron to his new role that he just began today. All right, moving on to 7.1.2. In your agenda package, you're going to see an updated list of principals and vice principals in a variety of roles. I also want to welcome Darlene Reynolds, as she has been appointed the temporary director of inclusive learning, and she happens to be in our room this evening. There we go, Darlene. Thank you very much. And then I also want to alert the board of some appointments to note. Craig McLeod, he has been assigned temporary principal of Paulson Elementary, and he happens to be in the room this evening. So welcome, Craig, to Paulson. Mark Williams, he is a teacher at Coheman Elementary. He has been assigned to a temporary VP role at Coheman. And Darren Hart's temporary vice principal appointment at Francis Kelsey has also been extended. And then I want to move on to 7.2.1. And so in your package on page 10 and 11, you are going to see a letter from Minister Whiteside. It is a letter from our Minister of Education and Child Care regarding the role of the education system to promote consent education and end gender-based violence in our schools. The ministry has taken action to help teachers build a culture of consent in their classrooms and schools by expanding the content in supporting student health guides related to consent and gender-based violence. It's developing enhancements for the physical and health education curriculum. And now we have dedicated resources on the Erase website to prevent and respond to different forms of gender-based abuse. So I want you to be aware of this is to be implemented in 2023-2024, no later than that. But it's certainly already in the hands of our directors of inclusive learning, who will be working across the district in the near future, in the coming months, around providing opportunities for more learning around this and implementation across our schools in the spring season, I'll say. If there aren't any questions, I'm happy to move to 7.2.2, which you will also see a schedule of school winter events and activities. And it is attached on page 12. And you'll see there that there are a number of schools that are having a number of events. So as board members and trustees, you are welcome to look at that long list. And also see that if you are interested in going, certainly contact the school office to let them know you're coming. They would always want to know if there is a trustee in their midst so that they can ensure that you have appropriate seating in the front row, all of those things in front of the parents. I'm kidding. With regard to the concerts and so on, but some of the items may not be addressed. So Shemina Secondary, it says nothing planned, but I do know that they're having a turkey dinner. And I also know that myself and Cheryl Kors, Associate Superintendent, and Trustee Croft will be in attendance, helping to serve the food on that day. So you're welcome to attend any of these events, and I'm sure that you would be most welcome. And then I want to move on to 7.2.3. At the board office, we have a number of events. We know that we are hosting at the senior team in the Board of Education on December the 16th morning. We are having our annual Christmas breakfast, and I know that some of you will be coming. But we also have the day before the Transportation Winter Celebration, which is at 9:30 in the morning, and that's in the Inspire Room. Later that morning at 11:30 is the Maintenance Winter Luncheon, and that's Thursday in Inspire Room. And then, of course, our breakfast. And then we're also having the Custodial Winter Luncheon on Friday at 1 o'clock to 3 in the Inspire Room. So I'm certain that at any time, any trustees would like to go attend any of those events, you can drop in, and I'm sure you will be well fed.
Can you please have those dates sent to us?
You certainly can. Thank you. It might even be on the schedule of that.
Moving on to 7.2.4.
And this is where the superintendent gives an update, and I know that the secretary treasurer will be online helping with maybe some of the photos that will be coming along with my report. So firstly, I'd like to start by acknowledgements and appreciation, which I often do every month. And I want to thank our learning team for the session that they put on around the Ignite and Bite learning session that happened at Palmerton on November the 17th. I'll talk a little bit more about that when the poster is shown. I'd like to also acknowledge the hard work of all of the non-instructional day organizers for putting on an excellent event that occurred on November the 25th, where we hosted Kim Bartel. And Kim Bartel certainly did an excellent job, and we hosted that in the event, and a lot of our presenters were there. Thirdly, I'd like to acknowledge our foundational skills assessment. About a week ago, they spent until about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, marking all of the foundational assessments of grades 4 and 7. We did acknowledge them with a dinner, but they did have to work till about 8:39, especially the numeracy crew. That actually had to do all of that work. And so this was we'll do that annually. And I do want to acknowledge the work that they did there. And then I do want to make a comment around our Associate Secretary Treasurer, Erin Eglund, and Mary Brinkman. They hosted a session last May at Francis Kelty, and they received a certificate of appreciation for their contribution to the 2022 Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. And so they were acknowledged with a certificate. So they worked hand in hand, and that was a focus on financial literacy and teaching our kids around certainly promoting that program at the school site. So those are my acknowledgements and appreciation across the district. And so now I'd like to really present a couple of items, and Jason's going to help us with a little bit of a slideshow. And firstly, again, I want to talk about Ignite and Bite.
Yeah, may I interrupt? As you know, I had to leave and come back, and both doors were locked, and we had people floating around who wanted to come to the meeting. So they remain locked, so if they're supposed to be unlocked, they'll need to be unlocked.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trustee Graham. I will ask our Director of Operations. Thank you.
We're a little mystified.
Thank you very much. So here on the screen is our Ignite and Bite session. This was held and hosted by our learning team. You're going to see some of the learning events. And Jason, do you mind making it just a slightly bigger for us? But you're going to see that there was a series of sessions that were planned. And so you can see that there was the district learning inventories. So what, now what? What are we doing with those? We also have Ensoling Our Schools, guided phonics and beyond curriculum, prefixes and suffixes and bases, oh my, coaching conversations around student discourse and empower learner voice, engagement and critical thinking, gaming 101, the nature of gaming, then and now, K-3 trades, trolleys, and ADST, my blueprint introduction, and Mary's journey through and within the educational system. And that happened to be Mary Peter, who is our current district vice principal of student success. And she just received her master's degree. And what she did is she created an oral presentation for her thesis. And so she was sharing that journey with anybody who was in the session. So again, professional learning opportunities across the district. And that was held on November the 17th. Moving on, if I could, our non-day came last week. She shared the only person we can change is ourselves. And she really worked toward how do we actually provide trauma-sensitive situations around anyone who works in our system. And I can see that I've lost my person doing the screen share, but I will have to say that Kim Bartel is a fantastic, I'm just going to read a little bit of who she is. She's an award-winning occupational therapist, multidisciplinary teacher, speaker, mentor, and best-selling author who is active in supporting people in many contexts globally. She is passionate about understanding complex behavior, neurobiology, sensory processing, trauma-sensitive practice. And when she started out with a story about the work that she had done in the North, she was very engaging in terms of working with children and how do we support them along the way. But the intention behind her presentation was how do we support all of our adults who work in our system, and how can they take care of themselves and have that balance so that they can be here in person and be grounded in the work that they're doing for our kids. So that happened last week. Then I wanted to share, the next page is around the inauguration of this board. And so here are some highlights of the board inauguration that was held on November the 8th at the Oceanfront Suites Hotel. Trustees were accompanied into the inaugural meeting by the Zinclaw dancers and an RCMP member in red serge. Trustees, staff, and guests were treated to performances by the dancers before the meeting was called to order. Our district elder knowledge holder welcomed everyone to the meeting. O Canada was performed by two lovely students who are part of our secondary schools. The trustees were sworn in by Honorable George J. Parker McCarthy as the Board of Education for the 2022-2026 term. And many of our partner groups were able to provide words of welcome to our new board. It's a lovely photo. And I'd like to share that when we get that framed, it will actually go on our legacy wall, which is to the left of me, right there, to show the new Board of Education. So I congratulate all of you, and it was a wonderful inauguration. Moving on to something to share around Lake Cowichan School. Congratulations to Smith's leadership class, and a big thank you to the 100+ Lake women for their generous donation to the Meals on Wheels program at Lake Cowichan School. So you can see that they're giving them a check there. And also, if you scroll down, Jason, at Lake Cowichan School, the junior girls, the volleyball, they were able to take the banner. So pretty excited about that. So that's the school sharing some of the great things that are happening out there. So that was Lake Cowichan this month. And then moving on to Quamashin School, Humanities 9 class, they began creating drums. And you can see that it began with students getting the opportunity to create the drums under the expertise and guidance of Fred Rowland, a renowned elder and knowledge holder in our Cowichan community. For 2 days, Fred Rowland led students through the drum creation process while explaining the history of the drum to the Cowichan people, the significance of the drumming materials, elk hide and sinew, yellow cedar and alderwood, and the cultural uses of the drum. Many of the students had a significant learning experiences as they made the drums both culturally and practically. After the drums were dried and ready to paint, the class had another guest, artist Leslie Sam. She came in to visit the class and help students in the drum painting. Some students created original designs, while other students used images created by Maynard Johnny Jr. and Stuart Pagidwan, while others chose non-Indigenous inspirations. Now, all of the students were told about the cultural practice of gifting their first creation to someone, and many of the students painted their drum with that person in mind. And so what a great opportunity for those students. It's not easy making a drum, and for 2 days and then painting it, and then of course that beautiful practice of giving it away.
Before you, Construction Foundation said if we were ever to want to do this in the school year, they would gladly pick up the tab for everything.
Thank you, Trustee Thorne.
Fantastic. And then I just want to make one more announcement before we move on to a Cowichan Secondary time lapse around how that's moving along. George Bonner Elementary was raising funds and having fun by selling fake mustaches to all students and staff. Every cent raised will be going to the Movember Foundation to support initiatives around men's health. So that was George Bonner. Now I'm going to ask Jason to share the Cowichan Secondary School replacement and a little bit of a time-lapse video so that we can actually see the progress. And if, maybe here we go. Jason, it's looking like it's coming up. I think on a normal machine that's not lagging, this would be over a 2 to 3 minute period of time.
Yeah.
Well, what we may do is we may just have to send it to the board so they can see it on their own laptop so they can actually see the progress. Regardless of that, you can see it is coming, and you can see that the infrastructure, that the ground has been built up and to a very, I think it was about 10 feet. 10 feet, and you can see that they're creating an infrastructure down below. The plumbing has gone in. You'll see the white tubes, that's the plumbing. They're creating the cement base for the anchors for the structure itself. Oh, it's coming. I think the most exciting part, though, is when you see the structural steel and the 3-story building where the trades areas will be. And I do want to do a shout out to Urban One, who put a beautiful Christmas tree out there with some lights. And maybe while you're watching that, I'll just move on with my report as it goes slowly along. I want to share with the board that we had the BC Shakeout Earthquake Drill. Many schools and the school board office took part in the Great BC Shakeout. It happened on October the 20th at 10:20 a.m. So we worked with many schools across the province who would be doing the same thing. I also want to share with the board that we are in partnership with the Deeper Learning Organization out of Harvard, and we have a team here of educators. And that team would include myself, Cheryl Kors, Jeff Rowan, Darcy Hoff, Nicole Boucher, Jen Calverley. Some of that team attended a convening at Lexington, Kentucky in October. And that particular group, we are affiliated with 11 of the districts and Harvard. And we work on what's called our deeper learning principles. And these principles include leadership accelerates emergence. So we know that leadership is important. Inequity or equity is structural. And also that adult learning and student learning are symmetrical. And so those are the deeper learning principles that we work on. It's something that we actually bring to our principals and vice principals. So on November the 14th, after the team attended Lexington, Kentucky, they came back and worked with all of our principals and vice principals and managers. And they worked on our framework for enhancing student learning and our school plan, looked at some of the actions that were occurring in their school plan, and really took a peek at, were they working? Was it equitable? Is it something that they need to look at, so that we try to bring alive those school plans and continue to look at them throughout the school year to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made, and how can we support our learners and look at that evidence and change maybe some of the actions that are within that school plan. Moving on October the 28th, I attended an all superintendents meeting with the deputy minister. This would have included all the superintendents across the province. The topics that were discussed was an update on teacher bargaining, truth and reconciliation, and also the concerns around workforce and how we have a number of people who are retiring, and we just don't have the same amount of people coming in to fill that gap. But anyone who is positioned near a university or college, that we have a better source of workers because of their closeness to us. And we know we take advantage of that at times, because we do have VIU very close to us, along with VIU in Nanaimo, where we actually have EA programs. We also have ECE programs, and we also have teacher programs. So that's very helpful for us as a school district. On November the 18th, we have what's called an Island Leadership Coalition, and this is where the superintendents associations across the island, we put together an opportunity for new leaders to go attend, and we had 7 of our newest vice principals in attendance, and they worked on mentorship, support, and networking for all of our new vice principals, and it was hosted by BC Principals and Vice Principals Association, and they did a number of reflective strategies around their own leadership standards. And so I think it was a great opportunity for our 7 vice principals to attend. I'll then move on. November 18th and 19th, we had an excellent trustee orientation with all the table. And we had many presentations by our senior team members. And then on November 23rd, some of you were in attendance at our Equity Scan meeting that was held at Arbutus Ridge. And there we reviewed the Equity Scan survey results and provided feedback to our district principal of Indigenous education, who will be working toward making some recommendations and developing an action plan from the results of that Equity Scan. And that will be something that will be rolled out in hopefully in March. We had an annual TD Grade 1 book giveaway. And so in November, we gave away 692 books to all students in grades 1, K1, and 1-2 split classes. So we thank TD for that book giveaway. And then I'm going to move on to an opportunity, myself, Cheryl Coors, the Associate Superintendent, and some of the staff from Cowichan Secondary were in attendance. We were invited to a Yayamna lunch. It was held yesterday at the CM Laylam Gym, and it was hosted by Dr. Brian Tom of the Department of Anthropology. So I don't know if many of you know this beautiful 2,000 or more, maybe 10,000 year site, which is a site that the Cowichan peoples were part of, and it's a bird's eye, throw across the way, in walking distance, that we have a partnership with UVic. And so many people were in attendance. And so the people that were invited to this luncheon included Cowichan elders, leaders, community members, and partners who have contributed to the project. Our very own Miss Coors was gifted because of the work that she had done around it. And they're looking to actually create an environment there that will host much more learning in the future around our Cowichan. And we will continue with that wonderful partnership. I want to let the board know that we have kindergarten registration coming up in January. It's fast approaching. Kindergarten registration is the week of January the 23rd through January the 27th for all of the schools that are the catchment areas for French Immersion and Mill Bay Nature School. Kindergarten registration starts January the 16th, so a couple weeks in advance of that. And so we will have more information for the board in January because we do go through a lottery program for those seats at French Immersion and Mill Bay. And then just lastly, before I move on to some board action, I just wanted to show the board that I was able to just recently visit or even show Mill Bay, Paulson, Cowichan Secondary School, the International Student Program, Ecole Hill, Smith Elementary, Alexander Elementary, and George Bonner. So it's always a treat when I can get up to the schools and visit some of them and see the excellent work that's happening in all of our schools and in our classes. Any questions before I move on to 7.3?
Seeing that?
All right, I will move on to 7.3. You will see in your package. Get there. Now we have some student travel, international travel requests. But before we go on to that, I know that some of you may be new to the board table, and I want to share a little bit of some items around international travel. So there's going to be 3 out-of-country student travel requests that are being brought here today. 2 are for final approval, and 1 is for approval in principle. So in accordance with Administrative Procedure 26.1, all out-of-country travel requests are reviewed by the Associate Superintendent and myself before being presented to the board for approval in principle and final approval. So requests for approval in principle are submitted to the district office, and they are to include a number of things. They have to include travel tours and high-risk waivers, or if risk is involved. There has to be a memo from the principal indicating support of the trip, a summary of the trip itinerary, the purpose of the trip, processes for parents to sign off on required forms, required visas, passports, medical insurance, and assurances that all safety concerns have been assessed and managed or eliminated. A copy of consent or information letters to parents that describes the purpose, fees, and procedural requirements. And that note, no fundraising or meetings with parents is to happen until after receiving approval in principle. So there's going to be two in your package today where that's occurred. And then any requests for final approval have to be submitted with all forms completed, a final itinerary and schedule. It also has to include a copy of the group tour and any other insurances, ground and airline travel arrangements, insurance forms, waiver forms, and all budget information. And safety plans are kept at school. So I want you to be aware of that before you look at some of these that have to be actioned for approval.
So we have Board of Education School District 79 Couch Valley grants final approval to the following trip requests: the Cowichan Secondary Grade 11 French and Francis Kelsey School Theater trip to New York City. Nice. So I have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Trustee Souza, Trustee Thorne. Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? And we also have one, the Board of Education. Oops, sorry. Board of Education School District 79 grants approval in principle to the following trip: Cowichan Secondary Band trip to Havana, Cuba, May 15th to 22nd, 2023. Moved by Trustee Lise, seconded by Trustee Kraft. All those in favor? Thank you.
That is the end of my report. Thank you.
Moving to the Secretary Treasurer, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to advance the agenda to the attachments for my section. Thank you. So my items this evening are for information. So the first one is for the benefit of the public and the school community to see the Board of Education liaisons for school lists. So here we have the schools that trustees are attached to. And that list is included in the package as well. And then moving along, there's also board appointments to representatives to various organizations, such as BCSTA and VISTA and BCPC, and then the appointments on the board and district committees. And then following that item, we also have, still on that, we also have contacts to external organizations, such as various chambers and community organizations. Oops, sorry. And then finally, the rotations for DPAC and DSAC. And then moving on to my next information item is the board office winter break hours. So the complex traditionally is closed to the public from December 19th through January 2nd, 2023. And we have a similar closure, a more reduced closure at Central Receiving, but our board office operations and transportations department will be closed to the public for the 2 weeks of the winter break. And then the final item is a good news item on the announcement of new funding for, in particular, the new funding comes from Penelakut Nation. And this is related to joint First Nation student transportation plans. So we've been, the Indigenous Education Department has been working hard with Penelakut Nation to come up with a water taxi solution. So the students that live on Penelakut Island don't have to wait for the ferry, which often impacts their ability to participate in after-school activities. It lengthens the school day. It also doesn't necessarily is compatible with early dismissal days. So really great information that has been supported. The breakdowns by the various nations are included in this announcement, but I'll just scroll to them. And so here we have Malahat Nation that provides transportation service. That's additional bus route that ensures that Malahat Nation have access to additional transportation. $227,000 represents the water taxi, and that'll hopefully be beginning in January. And then Cowichan, again, that has to do with transportation services for additional bus routes. And that concludes the information items that I have for the board.
Mr. Sandquist, committees and outside organizations have a lot to receive. Can I get a mover for the minutes of the May 24th, 2022 BEBC meeting, please? Trustee Doman, all those in favor? A mover and a seconder for the highlights of the DSAC meeting from October 23rd, 2022. Trustee Doman, Trustee Lise, all those in favor? Highlights from the November 17th DSAC meeting. 17th, sorry, November 17th DSAC meeting. Trustee Thorne, Trustee Strachan, all those in favor? Thank you. And from the October 20th, 2022 DPAC meeting. Trustee Doman, Trustee Thorne, thank you. Minutes from the November 14th, 2022 DPAC meeting. Trustee Lise, Trustee Dolan, all those in favor? Highlights from the November 15th advisory committee moved by Trustee Trustee Sousa, thank you. All those in favor? And highlights from the December 2nd, 2022 provincial council meeting. And Trustee Lise, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Upcoming meetings and events. Get our package. Any questions? No, new business. Question period from the gallery. So please make sure all your questions are to do with tonight's meeting. So Carmen.
Points and then a quick question. Just for the trustees rotation for the DPAC meetings, we have been going hybrid. So you have the choice of coming and joining us here in this lovely room in prison, or stay at home and be on the screen. And then just a question or query, I guess, in regards to the ministry letter for that was part of this package for the consent education and the gender-based violence. It wasn't touched upon in this meeting that there is within that letter the lapse of that being part of course, being part of physical education health class. That is not necessarily needed for credits for grades 11 and 12, but there is within that letter that it needs to be put into another form for grades 11 and 12. And I'm very curious as to how that's going to look like, what that's going to look like, how are we going to get there, how are we going to gather kind of information on how to do that. And just love to be part of that circle with you.
Superintendent.
I'm happy to respond. Since we just are in receipt of the letter, probably about 10 days ago, I know it has already been put in the hands of our directors of inclusive learning. And so I would imagine that because it is part of PHE, but I think it's even broader than that. It is something that needs to be really looked at, discussed, and probably workshopped and provided the professional learning that's needed across our organization around supporting that at all schools. I think it's highly relevant around the work that we're doing right now. And so I would have to say more to come as we work through that.
Just add that the materials that are already posted online, I don't know if you've looked at them yet. But they are really, really good, and if people are curious, then maybe answer some questions for them.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, motion for adjournment. Sorry, trustee Souza, trustee Crump. Thank you.